Before I proceed, I'd like to re-emphasize that order is required here. The press conference starts at 12 o'clock, so the minister, I guess, in the office at 12:05, ELPC News. We're working here by 12:10, 12:11. We expect all of the gadgets to be in place. Except you want to read on the water, before you enter, you put your phone on silent. But that one you should reply. Because it can be in the middle of your press conference, your phone ringing. That's what we get here. The impression you make on the first interaction is very important. That being said, we want to welcome all of our compatriots who are following this edition of the press conference, whether it is via community radio station, via ELPC, or the social media feeds. By means of the many cameras that are posted here, we want to welcome you to the historic Charles William press corps here at the Ministry of Information. Today's press briefing is very important. It's important because we have a very important guest who is addressing this press conference for the first time since we came here. She's no other but Her Excellency Nora Deprez. She's the ambassador of the European Union to Liberia. She's here. I hope I got her name pronounced properly. She's here to. You've been following what happened in the country, and there are many interventions being made by our foreign partners. And the European Union is involved with a lot of undertaking, a lot of projects, a lot of initiatives in Liberia. So she came here today to interact with the public. She will also talk about some of the undertaking the EU is involved with. And then you will have the opportunity to question the ambassador. She didn't come here to talk politics. She came here to talk about EU involvement. We want you to keep it at that. Before she mounts the podium, it is customary that the Honorable Minister of Information clearly decks on a number of issues which will now set the basis for the press conference to proceed, where our guest will mount the podium to speak as well. So let me now stand on the existing protocol to invite the official spokesperson of the government, who in his capacity as the Minister of Information will speak to a number of issues not pertaining to the laws that are being made by some of the people who have absolutely nothing to do, but very important issues about the progress of our country. So it's my honor to now invite Minister Geraldine Matthew Pierre to the microphone.
So, while it is true that the primary purpose for this platform is to communicate the work of the government, the platform can sometimes be politically charged. And we've always worked to separate our international partners from the politics of the day. So it's exactly because of that that we're going to change the format for today. the EU ambassador will make a presentation. When she's concluded, you will ask all your questions. She will answer the questions, and she will depart before the government speaks. So without any delay, I want to invite the ambassador. Ambassador, who will talk to you.
Good morning to you all. So my name is Nora Deprez, or Deprez. I am the European Union Ambassador to Liberia. I'm really happy to be here with you this morning, and I want to thank the Ministry of Information for this invitation. In fact, we were at our joint portfolio review meeting in December, and the Deputy Minister said, "But I didn't know you do so many things. You should come to one of our press briefings to explain." And I think that is one of the issues that we have with European Union presence here in Liberia, is that we do so many things that it becomes a bit complicated and a bit difficult to explain. So today I will not cover everything that we do here in Liberia, but I want to highlight a few things. So firstly, that of course Europe is Africa's neighbor, and that Africa and the European Union are major economic partners, that the European Union is Africa's largest trading partner and investor, while Africa is the EU's fourth largest trading partner. So just to give you a few figures on EU and Africa to start with, to set the frame. So the EU imports from Africa, they grew by 37% over the last 10 years. Manufacturing imports rose by 75%. And today, most African countries, 44 African countries, benefit from duty-free access to the EU market. And of course, Liberia is one of them. This is what we call a trading scheme, which is called Everything But Arms, which means that all exports from Liberia to the EU, except for arms, but Liberia does not export arms, enter the EU market duty-free and quota-free. So I think that's really important. Then secondly, let me go into investment. So the European investment stock on the continent have increased by 13%, and that is true too in Liberia. In Africa, Europe's investment stock is 6 times larger than the Chinese, for example. And European companies invest in Africa and in Liberia on the long haul. European companies are compliant, they pay their taxes, they offer decent jobs, and we want to invest. Then specifically on EU and Liberia, you know we are in these times of rising geopolitical tension, competition, scramble for resources. But the European Union is a predictable, reliable, long-standing partner to Liberia, and we commit to this partnership. This partnership which is rooted in our shared values on international rules-based order, on multilateralism, on working together. So you know the motto of the European Union, of our 27 member states, is that we are stronger together. And that is also very similar to the work that we do here in Liberia, where we also think that working with Liberia, we are stronger together. Let me also now go into some of the areas that we work in. And I think this press conference today is particularly timely because we are working with the government of Liberia to organize a hopefully successful EU-Liberia Business Forum that will be held in Brussels next month on the 24th and the 25th of February. And I think that is particularly important for us because we want to work together on growth and jobs. And everything we do here in Liberia is centered around growth and jobs and about improving the business environment. So let me start by just highlighting a few of the sectors where we are active. So I think most of you know that we work a lot on TVET, on technical vocational education and training. Similarly, we work with our member states, France, Germany, Sweden, on TVET. We are building TVET schools in each of the 15 counties of Liberia, providing teacher training in their trades, but also providing pedagogical training. So not only renovating the schools, providing state-of-the-art equipment in welding, in automotive, in mechanics, but also in hospitality, but also training the teachers. I think that is really important in order to have a skilled workforce. But not only are we active in TVET, I think that is what most of us know, but we also work on basic education. But there again, we feel that it's more important to work together. So we work through the Global Partnership for Education. I think this is one of the projects that was mentioned by President Boakai in his State of the Nation address, is Excellency, which is a joint program by the World Bank and by Global Partnership for Education. Global Partnership for Education, the EU and the EU member states are the largest partner in Global Partnership for Education. So that is one sector, to try to get a skilled workforce. But also, of course, we work on infrastructure. We work on roads. We have worked on many roads here all over Liberia before. And we work on energy. We were, of course, part of the first partners into the rebuilding of Mount Coffee. We have done Light Up Monrovia, which has provided electricity distribution to 40,000 households in Monrovia. And now, currently, we are working on electricity distribution, but also generation in the southeast. So distribution in Buchanan, and generation through a little solar plant and hydro plant in Greenville, and a little solar plant in Barclayville, because we think that it's also very important to work on the remote areas. And we're currently discussing with the Minister of Public Works. We hope to be able to announce some good news in the coming weeks on hopefully investing in a portion of the coastal highway. We have also done the electrification of the Via Corridor and the connection of the international airport to the NEC grid, which is really important in order to decrease electricity bill of the airport, and also to green energy, because some of the energy that NEC produces is green, of course, through the hydropower. I think maybe you've seen today that we're also proud to announce that we will provide some equipment to the airport, and then we will also be able to do some minor works, safety and security works at the airport. I think that's very important to improve the investment climate here in Liberia. You know, the EU also, of course, stands for sustainable management of natural resources. We want to be the first carbon neutral continent by 2050. Our consumers don't want to contribute to climate change elsewhere. We have decreased our emission of greenhouse gas, but we have not stopped our economic development. So I think that's a very important message, is that you can decouple greenhouse gas emissions from economic growth. So currently we only contribute to 6% of greenhouse gas emission, but our economy has grown by 30% over the last 20 years. But we also don't want to contribute to greenhouse gas emissions elsewhere through our imports. So our consumers are becoming more sensitive to make sure that what we consume in Europe does not contribute to climate change elsewhere. And there also we know that Liberia is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world in terms of climate change. So here we work a lot on preserving biodiversity, conserving forests, while at the same time working, of course, with the local forest communities on alternative livelihoods, so that they don't go into the forest and use the forest resources in a non-sustainable way. We also, of course, work on agriculture. And that is also very important because we're trying to make a systemic change in agriculture here, working, of course, with the government, with the Ministry of Agriculture, with CARI, with LACA, with all of the different institutions, and also, of course, with the partners, with FAO, and with IFAD. What we work on is really at the structural level. We're trying to grow seeds of rice that are particularly adapted to the Liberian climate and to the Liberian soil. It's not only about rice, we do the same for fish, for cocoa, for coffee, and for cassava, where we will also work on the entire value chain, trying to attract private sector investment into those value chains. We also work on the soil system. So Liberia is one of the countries in the region where you don't have a soil mapping. So where it's difficult for the farmers to know what to grow on which soils. So we're trying to work on that too. And then, of course, very importantly, we work on food safety. So we work on reinforcing the Food Standards Authority because that is very important for Liberian consumers and for health in general here in Liberia. We work on so many issues, but I want to focus on the business environment and the investment environment. And I want to say also that our work here on public finance management is important in that respect. So I think maybe you know that late last year we were very proud to announce that we've been able to disperse our first budget support disbursement into the Treasury of Liberia, because that is the preferred way of working for the EU. We think that it's more efficient to provide funds through the Treasury that is accounted for, that is on budget, working on joint priorities, on policy reforms that the government of Liberia considers priorities. So we work there on reinforcing public finance management, budget preparation, budget transparency, implementation of all the recommendations, working also with the LRA on the rollout of the new VAT. We also work on sustainable management of natural resources in the context of this budget support operation, where we work mostly on trying to promote local rice production, and we work on forestry, on trying to preserve natural protected areas here in Liberia. We also work, of course, on governance. That is just in our DNA. We think that human rights are really important, but that you have to go beyond words, that you have to really actually go into action. So we have supported we're proud to say that we've supported the elections here, and we work with many civil society and with human rights defenders, and of course also on strengthening the media, an essential component of a healthy democracy. And what is the basis of all of our work is gender equality. Because of course, I think you cannot have sustainable development if you only work with 50% of your population. You need the brains of your 100% of population to try to get the most out of the young people, out of the creative minds, to sustain your economic growth. So we continue to work on the second phase of Spotlight, which is really there to support the fight against sexual and gender-based violence, but also working on women, economic empowerment, and political participation of women. I think all of this contributes to try to make of the Liberia EU Business Forum that will happen in Brussels next month on the 24th and the 25th, a successful event. So where we can try to attract further European investment into Liberia, creating jobs and growth in Liberia. I'm open to questions.
Has the question related to what is about the scope of this? One question. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, Ambassador, also thank you. My name is Nandisa Report for Star TV. My question was we're talking about agriculture, support to agriculture. So I want to know how much is embedded for local farmers in terms of support to agriculture?
Well, okay, my name is Arthur P. Buse. I report for the Homeland and Madam Ambassador, I want to know, you talked about the installations of a solar system, and you mentioned about Barclayville. So my question here, from the installation of those solar plates that will be installed in Barclayville, how many cities or towns are to benefit from the legislation?
I'm Jackson Halisifa and I report for SET TV. Ambassador, my questions has to do with democracy and good governance. The EU has been a strong partner in strengthening our democratic institutions. Since the 2023 election, up to date, what have been your observation on the present regime's governance structure in terms of democracy and good governance? Thank you.
Thank you so much for. Thank you so much, Madam Ambassador, Deprez. Say thank you. What are some of the biggest challenges the EU faces in working with the Liberian government and the civil society organizations? And how does the EU plan to address the challenges?
Good afternoon, Deprez. My name is Christopher Bestman, and I report for Inside Liberia. Thank you for the splendid progress being made through the European Union along with the government of Liberia. But my concern has been drawn to the 5 multilaterals in Liberia. There are 5 multilaterals in Liberia. And last year we saw a massive improvement in one of the multilaterals in Swahili County, where additional discipline were added to the students' skill. What do we stand with additional improvement in the remaining 4 multilaterals across the country? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is George Salim, and I report for Citizen Radio. My concern has been drawn to the issue of agriculture. Just a follow-up to my question, my colleague asked. Where these investments where are they being diverted to? Because we have like 15 countries within our country. So where these investments that the EU are making being diverted to? Thank you.
Thank you, and I work for the Minority. Madam Ambassador, thank you for the explanation. But quite recently, I saw a circular from the EU concerning the Light of Southeast project, and there was some scheduled technical assessment, but I did not hear you mention it because you have been 26 to the 29, so I want to get up to them.
All right, good afternoon, Madam Ambassador. I'm Marius David, and I report for Media News Africa. Thanks for all of the things you spoke on, but I have a concern, and I think that will be a recommendation as well, because the work of EU, both in Africa and other Liberia, are doing governance and ensuring that Africans are empowered. But one of the things when it comes to development that we have seen in the European society is the issue of sport, to be specific, soccer. When do we see the European Union, diverting or strengthening the issue of sport? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning to all. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for your presentation this afternoon. I'm concerned to know about some specific projects that the European Union intend to embark on in 2026 for Liberia. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thanks to the ambassador for the presentation. My name is Desmond Wion, I report for Democracy Watch newspaper. Ambassador, permit me to take you a little bit back. We have been Liberia as a premier partners to our growth and development over the past decade. And specifically, EU has some missions in terms of reducing poverty, improving development. I'm concerned to ask this question. Since a decade ago, with EU support to Liberia, poverty and unemployment still persist in the country. What specific measures, or to what extent can the EU consider what has been almost significant failure in terms of achieving these goals, and what particular message did the EU have learned in terms of executing this measure?
My name is Joseph Sally, and I report for Latin FM TV. Let me say thank you so much for your presentation. For me, I want to know whether, because you wouldn't mention TVET programs, so what the European Union is involved into maybe greater opportunity scholarship, like people doing masters and bachelor degree level.
And so I'm Minister Odesme Nansina, and I report for Sabah TV Nigeria. Liberia has a youthful population facing high unemployment. What is the EU doing to help Liberians to youth for employment?
Thank you, Vice President. Straight to the point.
My name is Ida reporting for Liberia for Service. The last time I spoke on the spotlight 2.0.
So what?
The spotlight 2.0.
Want to elaborate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for all of these questions. I'll try to respond as best as possible, but I'm really thankful for your interest. So let me first start with just a general clarification. So the EU in Liberia, just like with any of our partners in the world, we don't work on our own. So we work in support of the government's priorities, or in support of our joint priorities. So the EU supports the government in their aim to reduce poverty. So it's not the EU on our own that are going to try to do something here. We always work with the government. And then, of course, in our civil society programs, and we work with civil society, or in our youth programs, we work with youth or with women. But we're here really in support of the government's program. So let me just start by agriculture. So that is what we are moving away from individual support to individual local farmers into what we hope to be much more impactful in trying to work on the systemic level. So if a farmer has access to rice seeds that are particularly adapted to the Liberian climate and the Liberian soil, this will be in the interest of all the farmers. So at CARI, we are currently working with World Fish, with Africa Rice, to try to grow those best adapted rice seeds. Then some bigger rice producers will multiply the breeder seeds, and then there will be seeds available for the local farmers. So in that way, we hope to improve the livelihoods of all the farmers. And the same goes for the soil mapping, because the soil mapping will be everywhere in Liberia, will cover all the counties. So our support is not directed to specific counties, but we hope to cover entire Liberia. On electrification of Barclayville, so I forgot to take the numbers with me, but so we are building a solar plant of, I think it was 1.5 megawatts, that will suffice to cover the households that are currently in Barclayville. I think the households are in the number of TC, maybe 2,000 or So we will cover Barclayville, but we will not cover the surrounding villages. This is a grant of 42 million euros, so about $45 million. So it's a big infrastructure work, and cities and villages have grown since we have done the feasibility studies. So like in Buchanan has grown, Greenville has grown, Barclayville has grown. But the 42 million remains 42 million. And at the same time, prices have gone up to do the construction works. Working in Liberia is very expensive because of logistics, because of energy prices, because of transporting the material, etc. So our money will only bring us that far. And I don't want to decrease our money, but I think 42 million is already quite a bit. And we have the commitment by the government of Liberia that the government of Liberia will, 13,000 households in the entire LUSE program, which is Light Up the Southeast. So that's I think really a big number of households. So the government of Liberia, we're working of course very closely with the Ministry of Finance, with the Rural and the Renewable Energy Agency, with NEC, because it will be the CNSG energy that will be coming into Buchanan. The government of Liberia has committed to provide the funding that is needed to cover the remainder of what is not sufficient for our 42 million. So we're working very closely with the government on that. And that is also precisely where there was a technical mission this week in the Southeast. So I didn't go personally. I went with the Minister of Finance last year in March. And we're hoping by April this year to be able to switch on the solar in Greenville. And hopefully by that time, I will go back to Greenville with hopefully high-level representation from the government of Liberia. In terms of democracy and good governance, so that is of course very close to our heart, and that is just the basis of any of our partnership. So one of the basic conditions for the EU to enter into budget support is precisely that these essential criteria are met of democracy and good governance. We don't work in just any country, but we have decided, and my headquarters has decided, and our member states have decided that we can do budget support here in Liberia. That is only if some basic conditions are met. Those basic conditions are macroeconomic stability, a credible reform plan, which you have in the form of the Arrest Agenda for Inclusive Development, a transparent budget, and oversight. And since we made the first, and those criteria are reviewed every time we make a disbursement. So knowing that we have made the first disbursement is because we believe that Liberia meets those criteria. We have worked a lot with many of your integrity institutions, and their work, their performance has been really commendable, and we will continue to work with them, to work with GAC, to work with NRA, to work with the Internal Audit Agency, but also to work with LATI, for example, on transparency and natural resources. So we think Liberia is really progressing extremely well, and we're very happy of our close collaboration with the government of Liberia. But of course there are challenges. There are challenges of working wherever, but also of course here in Liberia. Here in Liberia we face many challenges in working with government, in working with civil society. We face challenges in that there are very few implementing partners available. We face challenges, the same challenges that all of us here face, in terms of logistics, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of energy, in terms of finding skilled labor. Those are challenges, of course. What is really good is that the government of Liberia, but also the people of Liberia, are very willing to engage with the EU. The other good thing is that there's a lot of freedom of expression here in Liberia, thanks to the media also. So we have very open and frank conversations, and that we also appreciate a lot. Let me go to TVET. So indeed, I said one TVET school per county, so which means we cover Zwevo, one, but not the four. I mean, we are here in support of the government. You have seen the government has just passed a big budget. Budget of Ministry of Education and Ministry of Youth and Sports have increased. So this is not for the EU to do just whatever and to do everything in Liberia. It's mainly for the Liberian government, held accountable by the Liberian people and the Liberian press, to do more. So we are not active in sports here. So you know that we also very strongly believe in trying to focus on a few areas, those areas that I mentioned, which are employment and growth, sustainable management of natural resources, and democratic and financial governance. So we don't specifically work on sports here. I know, for example, the French embassy and the French cooperation, they do have more of a structured cooperation on sports. The only thing we do is we do a sports game, we do kickball and football at the occasion of Europe Week, where the EU plays the government. And last year, the government won both games. But we'll try to make sure to do a bit better. Although in kickball, I think the government will always win. What are we going to do this year in 2026? So we just last week signed a new program on fisheries with the government. I don't know whether you saw this. We have just signed a financing agreement for a grant, again, of 25 million euros, about $27 million. And that is to promote and to develop the artisanal fishing value chain. So working very closely, of course, with NAFA. And working with the collaborative management units in the different counties. What else are we going to do in 2026? We also recently signed our program on private sector development. And that will work again on the same value chains that I mentioned for agriculture. So we'll work on fish, we'll work on timber, and we'll work on cassava. Because we're really trying to address the challenges, the obstacles in each of those value chains through different angles. Through the agriculture angle, through the private sector angle, but also through the TVET angle. So we're also going to try to get some training into specific, for example, equipment that is needed for fishing in our TVET curriculum, so that we provide a holistic response. What else are we going to do in 2026? So of course, we continue the implementation of our ongoing programs, but we will also continue our support to the Office of the War and Economic Crimes Court on the implementation of their roadmap. And that support will work through OHCHR. And today I have another colleague who's there with, at the Office of the War and Economic Crimes Court, also providing some support to them for their outreach campaign. Poverty reduction. So poverty reduction is the main aim, of course, of all of our cooperation in all of our treaties. But of course, we're absolutely not there on our own. We work with our development partners, with the multilaterals, with the bilaterals, and with the government of Liberia. I think you've also seen that we are in a changing world, where I think one of the lessons learned of aid is that aid is not sufficient, but that you also require investment by the private sector. So we also have loans, for example, by the European Investment Bank, and that is one of the reasons why we think it's important also to organize this Liberia EU Business Forum next month in Brussels. Aid on its own is absolutely not sufficient. And aid, by the way, is just a very small part of the budget of the government, Of course, this doesn't mean that we can just squander aid. We should try to reach the most impact possible with the aid that we have, but it's clearly not sufficient. So this is an endeavor that all of us have to work on together with the young people, with private sector, with civil society, with government. And then let me go to scholarships. And thank you for that question because I didn't mention it. So we have, I think, the most beautiful example of what the EU does with its partners globally is the Erasmus Scholarship Scheme. So Erasmus is open for students, for universities, for teachers, for entrepreneurs. And this is just a great scheme because it's entirely for free, including the visa application. You get a full scholarship. For example, the Erasmus Mundus is a master scholarship where you can get to go to several European countries over 2 years, everything paid for. You study, you get to meet other people, you get to meet European people, and then hopefully when you come back to Liberia, you give back to Liberia, and you become also an EU ambassador. Unfortunately, we don't have enough applications from Liberian students, universities, teachers. This is absolutely open and free. It's on the internet. You go to Erasmus, and you will find it, the link. And there is currently a call for interest which is open. So it's open until the 15th of February. I invite students that are listening to us to go and have a look. Don't go through middle people. It is directly on the website for Erasmus. It's a global competition, so you need to clearly spell out your motivation, which is to give back to Liberia. And then we hope to have more Liberians succeed in this Erasmus scholarship, and then more alumni that come back and that we can work with, and that can provide capacity to Liberia. On youth employment, I think I mentioned our TVET programs, private sector development program. So we're working on trying to skill youth in Liberia that will provide more of employment opportunities, including also for farming and of course for fisheries, because that will also provide more employment. Let me finish with Spotlight. So we had this first program, which was Spotlight 1.0, which was mostly working on the fight against sexual and gender-based violence, including trying to bring out in the open the debate around female genital mutilation. The second Spotlight, what we call Spotlight 2.0, will try to build on the achievements of Spotlight 1. So there will still be a very strong component on the fight against sexual and gender-based violence, but also working with Ministry of Justice to try to decrease the number of pre-trial detainees accused of rape, working of course with Ministry of Health, working with Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection on trying to improve the support, the holistic support provided to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. And then we'll also work on economic empowerment side of women, which is also really important in the fight against sexual and gender-based violence. But there we will also work in tandem with the World Bank funded program, which is on women economic empowerment. I think I tried to reply to all of your questions.
Thank you, Madam.
Good afternoon to everyone who's watching this live video from Focus on Liberia. That was the ambassador.
So we want to thank the ambassador. We give you a lot of news, and if you're focused on finding news right now, we're looking at the papers, we're listening to the radio to see what you did, what you're supposed to do as journalists, collecting enough news. I'm particularly happy in the midst of everything the ambassador said that they're going to support our effort towards the building of the coastal highway. That's good news because it's something that has been around for this long. And once we have our partners making interventions, helping us to do so, it's good news. Those are things we are more interested in beyond the regular politics that we will always be involved with, and that's why we're going to let the ambassador go. Then we'll make the remarks we're supposed to make for the rest of the press conference. Thank you, my ambassador. We'll get more feedback from the
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So while we await the minister to return, we just want to indicate that the presence of the ambassador is very important because I show many of you in the media are not yet following the work of the EU. But what she said to you here clearly indicates how involved the European Union is in Liberia's development. We'll try to do this, and I hope our appearance here, other foreign missions, international development partners can also make use of this platform. It's not just about us coming here every Tuesday and Thursday and saying to you what the government is doing. The development in our country is being driven by the government and heavily supported by our international development partners. So I think our presence here was no mistake, it was pushed in. And talk about electrifying coastal cities, Buchanan, Greenville, Barkerville. Because as close as Buchanan is to Monrovia, you have no problem with electricity. Least to mention Barkerville and Greenville. So I think it's a good thing, because electricity is life. When you see electricity moving in, the roads are moving in, then eventually lead to economic viability. So the European Union is a major partner in progress. All of the things that they are doing, electrifying rural cities, very helpful to our country. Very helpful. We cannot have a situation where development is consistently centralized, or you read the shows of Australia country, you don't feel the impact, you don't feel any kind of development. Even in Basel, as the ambassador was speaking here, the poles have been planted in schools. With the electrification, and couple with what the government will do, or what the government is doing to connect new communities and everything, very helpful for our country. So you heard her, and I hope you, quoting her indicator before she spoke, that they didn't come here for the usual politics. She came here to talk script development issues, the intervention the EU has made in Liberia. She did that very succinctly. We want to thank you for your attention. The minister will come back here to speak with you. But while we are with the minister, I just want to emphasize that right behind there, across the road, the president broke ground this morning for the construction. So the minister is back already, so
So actually, Minister Samuel is going to do the talking on our end of today's press conference, but I just wanted to say something short before he does that. Don't take the Liberian people for granted if you are a politician. They know us. All of us who are quote-unquote politicians, they know us. They know what we've made of. They know what we can do. They know what we can do. And the fact that they trusted us along the way is not an indication that they don't know what they do. You listen to some of the reactions we heard to the annual message, and then you ask yourself some very hard questions. Are these the people who say they are leaders? Are these the people who want to govern this country? That's another question. Some will even come on social media and just writing that the people they're dealing with don't know what they do. Before mentioning name, came across something that one of them wrote on social media. That person is not a God. They know how long they will live. They know that by 2029 they will still be living. Say on October 8, 2029, Liberians will officially establish and legislate the Ministry of Bread and Butter. Don't worry, my friends, Liberians are brought your cry. Interestingly, this individual is the one who made Liberians cry the most in the last 6 years. When he wrote this thing on social media, just pass across few of the comments, and then Liberians have to remind that we know you. We know who you are. One of them said, I will just say, do you think Liberians will get this very serious government from power and bring in lover balls and unserious people in power? You must be joking. If all the good thing the government is doing, if it is not bread and butter issue, then we just need one ministry where you guys will go every morning for bread and butter and to eat. And somebody said, but what about the ministry of criminals and sanctioned officials? The Liberian country, very posts are meant for Liberians, and Liberians are reacting. Another person said, never again to bring sanctioned FC back to power. Another person put it plainly, are you joining childlessness too? And another person said, only if you will be free at that time. Another person said, you were just there 6 years. And all you did was to steal from the people. Anyway, I don't blame you. I blame our government that I refuse to prosecute somebody like you. And somebody said, but you will be the head of that ministry under President Walker. Another person said, we really see bad law in the criminal realm. Another person said, by that time, you'll be beyond one old rusty bar at the Monrovia Central Prison. And we here. And I could read on. 99% of the comments on that person post were disastrous. It's just to tell you that Liberians are aware of what these people did to the country. Then some of the people who have been tested, but they say they want power, you think they know better? They say that road will eat. Jesus Christ. Who wants to be president and look down on road construction and you see that road will eat? So what are you going to be doing when you become president? That same person said, oh, the president said they have 11 indictments, but only 2 convictions. You know the mindset of that person when he made him president? Anybody that indict, you're forced to be guilty. Because they've not understood what the legal system is. When people go to court, they go there for 2 accounts. It's either you prove that the thing you get in the court for happened, and they are guilty, or you can prove it and they are acquitted. But in the definition of the person who want to be president, when you indict, you're guilty already. So when you are not guilty, then the government are fighting corruption. What kind of people are these? Even the elementary knowledge of a government is not there when you want the highest office. Now you understand why people can insist, even in private sector, that experience counts in any job you want. Because when you come with 0 experience, you don't know what you're doing. And sometimes, honestly, it's good to be quiet if you don't have anything substantive to say, than to expose yourself in ways that some of the very people are doing to themselves in the name of responding to the president's annual message. It is not defined that because you're opposition, you got to go for fault. Like I said yesterday, a lot of men were talking about Liberianization. The president not talking anything about Liberianization. But you were choked with post and letter when you were making that criticism. So you see why I say along the way that there's no need to waste our time on these people now that the president spoke. Someone will have what they want to say. You just have to move on and talk about the positive things happening in the country. The low objection was reached for the African Development Bank to give a contract now to the company that will be paving the road from Boundary Bay to Sastan. Sastan is not my home, I'm coming from Ikena. I'm not even sure that that's your home. It's the home of the person who led the country for the last 6 years and left it the way he left it. It's Joseph, son of Lofa. But now president of Liberia, so he's president for the whole country. He's the one taking role there. He's the one who stopped the regular stuff of cars being stuck on that road for weeks. And people sleeping in the mosquito, he stopped it. And people can pick up from Monrovia and to any part of the southeast, they go in there. And people are not understood. They're arrogant, they're so bad. Even our foreign friends, when they look at them, you get a little bit annoyed. They try to even challenge these people. They buy bad things they did for which they were sanctioned, they get ready to say that political sanction. It's an affront to those who did that to you. And for a group of who want to be arrogant and be confrontational with the international system, now you understand why they fail. Who's going to support you? Who's going to give you stuff with that kind of behavior? It's your conduct, the way you serve your people, the things you're doing. Because when a foreign nation gives you all the things the minister said, he didn't mention one loan. He kept saying grant, the ambassador. Or maybe you don't know, grant that free money. When they give you grant, that means for you. Take it and do your work. When they say loan, you pay back. But that grant they give you that their taxpayer money. They will not give it to you when the Western leaders are destroying our cryptocrats, which mean thieves. They're not going to give you money when they see senior officials in the government just being sanctioned that you're wasting water somewhere. You know, someone will come and tell us, so you acknowledge, in other words, you acknowledge that roads have been built. But you give the people the master that roadway. See, we are was disappointed in one of my best friends. And I don't know when I hear that talk. You run the education sector. Children will be motivated to go to school. You, the head of the education sector, say that both will eat. Only because you're supporting one man who was a noble. I think it's better to argue to say this man, you're saying no go, than to say that both will eat. Then I was common children listening to it. And they said, oh, but both are important, both are important. Why do we do that to ourselves in the name of politics? So I just wanted to make those points before I call Daniel to say the rest of what he has to say. And like I said, I think we just move on. No need to waste your time behind people who don't know what they're talking about. So I see nothing significant. Okay, before there was, nothing has changed. Now nothing significant. You will not see nothing significant. Because if your whole life has been in Atlanta, Georgia, where the house you live in there, no house in Liberia can be compared with it. There's a mansion. If you want to know that something significant happening, only when you see that same type of how you live in Atlanta to be here, then you will not see anything significant. Because it's been in Atlanta. But the same Atlanta you live, and in America where you live, all the over 50 states in America are connected by super highways. And that makes the society to be strong. But then you come back to your own where you want to be president and say, that road with you. Total waste of time. And now I understand why it's easier for something to come from 7% to 1%.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. So I'll just run through a few developments here and then we'll entertain questions from the press. The Ministry of Public Works announces that it has received a no objection from the Equal Development Bank for investment and development following the submission of the comprehensive bid evaluation report. The no objection covers approval to hire contractor for the asphalt pavement of a 50-kilometer road connecting Batterville to Colonial and Sassan in Brentwood County. The ministry remains on track to finalize and sign a formal